Hi creatives, I am the man. You're welcome to another interesting sewing tutorial. On today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you how to cut and sew this beautiful Peter Pan collar dress with gathers on the knee area. Okay, if this sounds like what you'll be interested in knowing how I did it, then you have to stick around till the end. I'll be sharing with you how to make the pattern, how to make your draft your Peter Pan collar, how to draft the exact style of Peter Pan collar that you please, like the one that rolls over really perfectly, depending on how much you want it to roll over on the neckline. I'm going to be explaining all of that in this tutorial. And trust me when I say that you are going to benefit a whole lot from this very tutorial. Let's get right into the video. So I started this video by drawing a line at the beginning of the paper, just as you can see. And the next thing I had to do was to draw the basic neckline of 3 by 3. But if your client is on the big side, please use 3.5 by 3.5. So I used my armhole curve to connect those 2 points. Now what I'm taking now is the shoulder measurement divided by 2. I had to mark it at 2 points, and then I ruled my vertical line just as you can see. So after that, I had to drop here by 1 inch. Now the next is to connect these points to the neckline just as I did. Take the bust level, that is what I'm taking now, and then the half line, front half length, which is the same as the waistline. Okay, so I had to mark it at another point, that is to make two different points so as to get a straight line. So that is what I just did, and I ruled a line across the bust, which is what I'm writing now, and then the waist line. Okay, now from there I measured the hip level, which is about 8 1/4 inches down from the waistline. Then I had to rule my horizontal line as well across the hip level. Okay, so after this I will go ahead and take all the measurements that are really important. So what I had to take here is to ensure I take the measurement for the gown length, where I'll be joining the gather from, and what I measured here is 16. Okay, what I measure here, but feel free to take the measurement that you please. If you want your gather to join from 14 inches level or any level at all that you wish, feel free to do that. But I feel 16 is perfect for the style that we are trying to replicate. So after that, I had to write gather joining. Okay, gather joining, because that is where I'll be joining the gather from. So what I did next was to divide the bust measurements into 4. So if your bust is 40, you divide into 4, that will give like 10 to give 10. So when you divide, you mark at 2 points and draw your vertical line just as I did right now. Now this is the waist measurement divided by 4 plus half inch, that intake, instead of 1 inch. Yes, I used half because this cloth is like a box fitted cloth. I will actually not be stitching that half inch, that, but to give a little free nature on that waistline. Okay, now the next thing is side bust that, which is 1.5. That is the difference between the front and the back half length, and I will simply connect this to the bust point, which is what I'm marking now, half of bust to bust. So I connected this to the bust point, and this is what I have. So I will go ahead and mark 5 inches down from here and come in by 3/4, and then I just measure half of my armhole measurements and mark. Then I will draw with my armhole curved rule. So having done this, what next I will do is to mark the hip measurement divided by 4. So we are going to go to this hip level and measure hip measurement divided by 4. If your hip is 42, what you measure here is 10.5. That is what I mean. And then you connect this point to the waist. So after that, we will go ahead and measure what we have for this hip again. Just remove about 3/4 inch or 1 inch from whatever measurement you have on that hip line, and mark the same on this level of the gather. Okay, then you connect this to the hip line. So there was an error as I was connecting this to the hip line, so I just had to correct and redraw the line, and of course I had to go ahead and use my correction pen to clean the first line that I drew. Okay, so after that we will go ahead and continue with the back pattern. So to make the back pattern, I drew a line. This is just a starting point, nothing serious. Then I had to go ahead and mark the neckline, which is 3 by half inch. Yes, 3 by half inch. That is what you're going to use here, and you use your armhole cuff to connect just as I did. Now the next is shoulder measurement divided by 2. I marked at 2 points and I connected with my vertical line like so. Now we'll go ahead and do the shoulder slope of 1 inch and connect it to the neckline like so. Now I had to go ahead and mark the half length, the back half length, which is the waistline, right? So I'll mark this at 2 points and I will roll my horizontal line across that part. Okay, so now go ahead and use your straight ruler to connect these points. So after doing that, I marked the hip level from this point, which is about 8 1/4. So after that, I'll go ahead and rule a line across that hip level. Now the next is 16 inches down from the waistline, which is where the gather will be joining from, and I ruled my horizontal line as well. So here is me labeling all of the lines, what it should be, right? So after that, I had to measure bust measurement divided by 4. I marked at 2 points and then connected with a vertical line. That is how to do this. So after this connection, I'll go ahead and measure half inch here, and from there I measured waist measurement divided by 4 plus half inch dart intake. I marked and then I connected this to the side like this. So now the next is to mark the hip measurement divided by 4, and I marked the points, and then I'll use my ruler to connect this to the waistline just like so. So on the back tightening as well, I had to fix it, take it up, and of course bring it down just as you can see me do. Okay, aside what I'm saying, pay close attention to what I'm doing and you'll understand every bit of what I did to achieve this dress. So after this, the next is to go ahead and mark 1 inch on this center back along the line that the gather will be joining from. So I measured what I have for the front, exactly the same is what I marked for the back. So now I'm going to connect this point to the hip line and also connect it to the hip, of course, at the center back. So now the next is to drop here by 5 inches and coming by half to draw the armhole. So now this is me measuring the half of armhole measurements and of course marking it. Then the next is to use my armhole curve rule to draw the armhole curve. So this is what I have, and yeah, I had to write B, which is back. So now the next is to go ahead and cut out what I have here. Cut out what I have for the back and of course for the front as well. So after cutting it out, I'll go ahead and cut this on fabric, then we will continue. So here I have cut on fabric and you can see the seam allowances I used. I used about 1.5 inches by the side and of course along the zipper. You can use 1/4, right? On the side and of course along the zipper, and every other part is ½ inch seam allowance. I also had to cut the lining as well because this is very important. This fabric is a crepe fabric, a patterned crepe fabric that has a bit of stretch on it. So the lining I used also is stretchy a bit, just like the lycra, and it's quite light, very suitable for the lycra fabric. Okay, so you know that the choice of lining is very important when you're making a dress as well. You can see the allowance I used here, and you can see the notches I put for where the dart, side bust dart will be, because I'm going to stitch only the side bust dart for this dress. There is no waist dart. The waist dart there of ½ inch will not be stitched. So now I'm going to apply my paper gum on the neckline, and yeah, after applying it, this is what I did so far. I've joined the pattern dress, that is the main fabric proper. I've joined it by the sides and of course on the shoulder. You can see that I have also stitched the darts, the side bust darts, but there are no waist darts. Okay, so this is what I have at this stage. I've also gone ahead to take care of the lining. So on this neckline, the Peter Pan collar is going to be, so I will notch the middle of the neckline so that I'll know exactly where I will be placing the Peter Pan collar when I get to that stage. So what I have here is the lining. You can see that I applied pepper gum on the neckline. Okay, this is to give strength and stability to that neckline. Now this is what I have, and I did not stitch any darts on the waistline, rather I stitched the side bust that. Okay, now the next is to go ahead and do our Peter Pan. Very, very important, right? So now if you want to make your Peter Pan, you have to check how you overlap this armhole area. That is very important. This part that I'm pointing, where I'm going to take my measurements now. So this is the plain paper that I'll be using to draft the Peter Pan. So what I took here was about 1 inch. I took the same measurement from this other end. Now the right thing to do is to overlap. Make sure that the two markings are touching each other. Note that this marking can as well be 1.5 inches. It can be half inch as well. So at this point, I felt I overlapped it so much because this will determine how your collar is going to lap. Yes, the more you overlap this, the more rolled over your collar is going to be. So I reduced the lapping. I had to make it to be about 3/4 inch, okay, on each side, and that is where I overlapped this to ignore the 1 inch that I made earlier. But if you want your neckline, the Peter Pan neckline, to lap really well on the neckline, it depends on the outcome you want to achieve. If that is what you want, you can even go as high as 1.5, even 2 inches to get a sort of rolled over Peter Pan collar. But I feel 3/4 inch is perfect for what I want to achieve, and that is why I limited it at that. You can see how I drew the outline of this neckline. I had to mark front and back to know exactly where my front and back is, even the shoulder line. This is so important. Okay, those are guidelines for stitching the Peter Pan. Now you are going to take how wide you want your Peter Pan to be. I want mine to be 2.5 inches. Feel free to make yours 3 or 4 depending on how wide you want it to be. So what I used is 2.5, and I finished drawing this. I had to come in here by about ½ inch because of how the V, you can see the V on that Peter Pan collar. That is where I marked that ½ inch there, and then connected to the neck. I connected it this way towards the neckline of the Peter Pan collar, just to get that V kind of shape at the center front and of course at the center back. So where I'm shading will be going off, but if you want it to appear straight, you don't want it to be like a V as in the pinned picture, please feel free to cut it out straight. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. So I have gone ahead to notch the shoulder point because this will be important while joining the Peter Pan collar. So what I folded over, this is double of this fabric that I'm cutting out now because it's folded. So what I folded now is plain black crepe because that is what I'm using for the collar and of course the gathered part, the lower gathered part of this dress. So what I'm notching here is the shoulder line. Ensure that you put every notch into consideration, and where I'm notching here is the center back, so that I know exactly where the center back is, not to place it where the center front should be. This is very important. So you can see that I've also marked the wrong side of the crepe fabric, because if you don't mark it as fast as possible, it's going to be confusing where the back or the front is for the crepe. So what I'm cutting out now is an interfacing cloth gum, because I want to use it and give a sort of structure to this Peter Pan collar. So what I did here was to go ahead and place all of those cloth gum. This is cloth gum in black. Okay, I placed the cloth gum all over the Peter Pan collar, and then after placing it, the gummy part is actually touching the wrong side of the crepe fabric, right? So I have gone ahead to iron it. So after doing this, you go ahead and iron, and I've also stitched. So you can see that I've stitched the collar together. I've actually applied the interfacing at the stage. So you go ahead and notch, and then you push your fabric towards one side, the side you want to be the lining, and then top stitch. So here I have top stitched, and this is what I have. You can see me cutting the excess fabric that are here. This is strictly because I want it to appear flat. I don't want any bulk from excess seam to make the seams to appear bulky, right? So now this is what I have. Even this part, I had to trim it out. I don't want any bulk anywhere at all. So I've trimmed all of this out, and I had to remove it. So this is what I have at this stage. You're going to turn it inside out very well. That pointy part, you can actually use small screwdriver carefully to push it out. Okay, so after pushing it out, this is what it looks like. I'll go ahead and iron, and yeah, I stitched close that open part that I don't, stitched it. I turned it inside out from, right? So after that, you can see what I have. Note that I also marked with chalk where the back part of the Peter Pan is, where the zipper area is, okay? Because it's very important so that you don't switch it. You don't put the back part to the front side and all of that. You can see the chalk marking towards the back, towards the zipper area. So this is how you're going to pin it. I also ensured that the shoulder notch mark aligned with the shoulder aligns with the shoulder of the dress. So here I have stitched down the Peter Pan collar, and I will place the lining like this and stitch round as well. So here I have stitched round. I've stitched the lining and the fabric, main fabric, together with the Peter Pan collar in between. Here I've notched, and I'm going to push the excess towards the lining and top stitch. So that is what I did here. I have top stitched, and this is what I have. You can see that I've stitched down from where the zipper will end to where the gather will stop. Okay, so that is what I stitched down along that zipper line. So I'm just turning this inside out to appreciate how far I've come. And yeah, I like the outcome when I checked. So this is the zipper area. I'll go ahead and fix the zipper. Now this is how you fix your zipper. You're going to place it like this and then stitch on this part. Okay, you're going to do the same thing for the opposite side. Stitch on the zipper like this. You can see how I stitched it on. So after stitching it on only the fabric, you're going to place this part like this and flip over the lining like this, and then stitch till you get to where the stitching started from, on the lower side of the zipper line. I hope this makes sense. Aside what I'm saying, please pay close attention, and you understand perfectly everything I did to achieve this dress. So now the next is to go ahead and put the sleeve. You can see how neat everywhere is inside out. Okay, so now this is the sleeve that I want to cut. Now I already have a pattern, like a master pattern on the sleeve, and coincidentally is exactly the biceps of my client. So I had to just use the master pattern of the sleeve to cut out the sleeve here, because this is a basic sleeve and that is what we need for this dress. So what I did was to go ahead and cut out the basic sleeve, and of course notch the middle. So at this point I felt it was too long, longer than I wanted it, so I had to trim off a little excess from the hem of the sleeve, just as you can see me do. So here I'm just checking out the upper arm circumference and trimming out any excess that is not needed. Okay, so after that you're going to use your specific client measurement to take all of this. Okay, so after that I cut out the black fabric, the black crepe that I'll be using to turn the hem of this sleeve, just as you can see. So right now this is what I have, and I had to mark the back, the reverse side of this black crepe fabric. You can see how I placed this. Okay, the wrong side of the main fabric is touching the right side of the crepe fabric. Okay, the wrong side to the right side of the crepe fabric, because I'm doing a sort of turn up. So after stitching it down, this is what I have. I have gone ahead to notch and top stitch and then iron open. This is how I'm going to stitch this down. And yes, at this point I've gotten my turn up and I have to stitch close the um sleeve, just as you can see. So after stitching close the sleeve, the inseam of the sleeve, I'll just place it like this and stitch on the armhole the right way. Okay, do well to stitch it perfectly and correctly. And after stitching it, this is what I have. You can see how perfect this looks. So the Peter Pan collar is really laying really nicely. And yes, I had to check what the length of the gather should be, right? Because I wrote the remaining length on my pattern paper. That is what I checked. I measured where the gather would be and make sure that the how wide, how full the gather will be should be like 2.5 times whatever measurement I got while measuring that lower part where the gather should attach. I hope this makes sense, right? So now this is me measuring the length of the gather, what we need as the length of the gather. Okay, so just go ahead and mark just as you can see and then cut out. So I'm going to cut this and also cut a second one so that each of them will take care of the front and the other one will take care of the back. One will take care of the front and one will take care of the back. This is already on fold, you know, okay? Each of them is on fold. So now I am going to mark the wrong side of this and then I'm going to join it on the two sides like this, all right? So I'm going to join it and then hem. So you can see what I have here. I've joined the two sides and I have hemmed this black crepe. So the next thing to do is to go ahead and join it and form your gather. Note that the fullness of this gather should be 2.5 times what we have here. Yes, what I'm measuring here, the front part of this black should be like 2.5 of it at least. But if you have massive fabric, you can make it up to 3 if you want it to be very full. But if you don't want it to be full at all, you can as well use 2 times. Like if I measured and I got, let's say 18, you can make it from 36 if you want it to be scanty. But if you want it to have medium fullness, just do 18 times 2.5. Then if you want it to be very, very full, you can do 18 times 3. Okay, it depends on how full you want your gather to be. So at the end of the day, this is the beautiful outcome I got. Is this not gorgeous? Is this not lovely? Are you going to try it out? Do well to try it out and tell me what your outcome is. You can see how gorgeous it's looking on the dress form. I was so satisfied with the outcome, and of course, my client loved her dress. Also, you can observe the V nature that is in between the Peter Pan collar, just as we wanted it. If you've not subscribed to my channel, guys, what are you waiting for? Subscribe and turn on your notification bell to be the first to know each time I upload my lovely videos. And thank you for always stopping by to watch my videos. I do not take it for granted. I love you all, and of course I'll see you in my next one. Bye.